Hi, lady. You're either pregnant or very fat.
I am pregnant.
How would you like your child to start a rocket company?
That would be great. I guess.
Then try new Tylenol, Autism Strength, the only pain reliever guaranteed to put your child on the spectrum. This fast-acting Tylenol quickly goes through your bloodstream and somehow, through some unknown process no one can quite explain, gives your child autism.
Are there any side effects?
Well, there's the autism.
Oh.
Tylenol Autism Strength. It may or may not give your kid autism. There's like a correlation or something.
2, 3, hey!
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Votes
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, former NYC Councilman Joe Borelli on the battle for his city's future. Heritage Foundation's Rachel Grezler breaks down what's going on with trade schools and education. Psychologist Dr. Chloe Carmichel on how to keep your head in a world that's lost its free speech. And an exclusive sit-down with the son of the president, Eric Trump, along with Matthew West in the Spotlight. And now from Times Square, where even the billboards whose lights went out made more sense than the visitors at the UN this week, here's the Kevin!
Welcome in, friends. Glad to have you for the weekend. We've got a lot to get to, including an incredible exclusive one-on-one sit-down with Eric Trump. His new book is called Under Siege. This is the book that I said on X, as soon as he published it, that this was the book that America was waiting to read. He takes us behind the scenes in all of the moments that his family and his dad have been through over the last 8 years. It's been amazing to watch what's happened there. I've always wanted to know what was being said from the inside. It's very raw. You're going to see it's still very passionate in Eric's heart. And he will be with us with that in hour number 2 this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. Friends, I can't get away. I mean, I was kind of looking forward to coming back to the microphone this weekend because I was hoping that it would be a little bit more joyous than the last 2 have been. We've obviously been mourning the loss of Charlie Kirk, particularly in the world of Salem News Channel and Salem Radio. He was one of us. He was part of us. He was, in many ways, our fastest rising, brightest star. And I felt like that with the memorial service last Sunday, it was a really good, capstone to the public celebration of his life and the mourning of his loss, and now the country can begin to move on. Of course, for Erica and the kids, they'll never be able to fully move on because when you lose a dad and a husband, it's something that leaves a big aching hole in your heart for a long time. But here's the thing. I can't be celebratory this weekend because on the heels of Charlie Kirk, who is arguably maybe the most effective evangelist in Christendom for the younger generation of today's culture. He was arguably the most articulate spokesperson for the gospel to anyone under 30. He was arguably one of the most well-informed, factually driven, able to engage in a winsome conversation debater that we had seen in several generations. But on the heels of his loss, I just found out that Vodi Bakum has passed away as well. Now, you may not know Vodi. He's not nearly as popular as Charlie Kirk was, but if you've followed anything related to theological, textual accuracy, people that have argued for the superiority and the authority of Scripture, you know that Vodi Bakum was a voice crying in the wilderness, especially amongst African Americans. Because so many of the pulpits in some of these churches nationwide were preaching hate the weekend after Charlie Kirk died. They were saying that Charlie Kirk was a white supremacist. They called him that. They called him a racist. And it's all political positioning. They want to keep their, quote, constituencies happy. So they say this stuff from the pulpit so that it keeps their people riled up. When in reality, there have been dozens, if not hundreds, of African Americans taking to social media over the last 14 days, 16 days, that have been saying, I loved Charlie Kirk, and here's all the ways that I know that he wasn't a racist. And they've got it. They've got the receipts, friends. They've got the videos. They've got everything. So you've seen that kind of back and forth element, accusing Charlie Kirk of being a racist. People, African American, coming to his defense, defending his honor, saying you don't know what you're talking about, or you're purposefully misrepresenting what you're hoping he kind of said. You're kind of hoping that Charlie Kirk was a racist because you're kind of hoping that the truth that he was able to get through into people wouldn't really take root, so that those of you that do this from an advantage point, Reverend Sharpton, you can keep schnookering people, and as you snooker people, then they keep giving your organizations money. It's that kind of nonsense that Charlie Kirk was piercing through. But on the other side of the equation, there was a white liberal progressive bent that the evangelical church was starting to veer off on right around the George Floyd time. Actually, before that, deconstruction's been going on for a while. But Vody, as a prominent African-American apologetics master, as someone who was teaching at the college level and seminary level, sound theology, he was able to step into both of these worlds and call spades spades and say, no, you're not telling the truth, and here's why we know this. And then he could lay out his case. And to lose Vody on the week after we buried Charlie, friends, I just got to say, it was a hard week for me. It was a really hard end to the week. I see these two gentlemen and now their legacies that will follow them as pathways of salvation when it comes to actual biblical Christianity. I see them as bright, burning stars shining truth and saying, hey, the gospel isn't about being black or white, as is obvious from the two of them. It is about truth and non-truth. It is not about what you think, feel, or what kind of parking permits you can get for your church. It is about the actual truth and substance of what Jesus said knowing him was about. And so you've had these two major voices. Neither one of them was afraid to weigh into the political fray, but neither one of them thought politics answered all the questions. They both, and if you watch the Charlie Kirk Memorial, you know this clearly because half the administration spoke and almost none of them spoke about politics. Almost every one of them to a person was saying, thank you, Charlie, for encouraging me to be more brave about my own faith. It was incredible. So you've had these two enormous bright lights now go out. And the question becomes, for the church in America, the Christians globally, for pastors in local neighborhoods and local churches across not just where I live in the New York City area, but the whole world, how bold will you be about your beliefs? Even Vice President J.D. Vance said last week that as a man of faith, he'd always observed his faith. It's always meant something very deeply to him. If you saw his acceptance speech at the Republican convention a couple of years ago, you know that was the case. You know that this was a man who's driven by a moral calling from God. But he wouldn't talk about it. He said, I was nervous to talk about it. And then Charlie died, and it changed everything. He said, I have to talk about it. I've talked about it more in the last 2 weeks since Charlie died than I have my entire career before that. Friends, we have to be, and here's why it matters. So if you're political and you don't care about Christianity, but you're saying, Kev, why are you going off on all this? Because our freedoms in America were not built in a vacuum. Our freedoms in America were based on a moral foundation. And the founders weren't perfect people, and they didn't get everything right. But in their acknowledgement that there was a God who cared and was involved in the doings of man on his watch, on his time, as he had created them, the founders understood that we all report to a higher power. And while it took our country sometimes on some issues centuries to get it right. We did self-correct. And we do have the ability to self-correct. And what the people who are opposing Vodi Bakum and Charlie Kirk and America First and the president and the administration and the church-going people of America who put all of them in the office where they are now, what those people are wanting to drag us to looks like authoritarian Islamism in the form of Mr. Mamdani in New York City. It looks like out-of-control progressivism to Gavin Newsom in California. And friends, we've got to stop. Stay with us. Huge show. Matthew West. Eric Trump sits down one-on-one with me in the second hour. It's going to be great. Joe Borelli, Rachel Grezler, and Dr. Chloe Carmichel. Coming up next, it's That Kevin Show.
Back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for all that you need, including podcasts and archives, etc. Never behind a paywall, always free. Rachel Grezler is my next guest. She is from the Heritage Foundation. We love those folks. We talk to them every week. And Rachel, wasn't long ago that I had one of your colleagues, Carrie Ingram, who was here, and she was talking about the kind of trend in education where there are some really good programs for kids to go into to kind of pursue non-traditional college education. And this is turning into a bigger issue kind of across the board than I think I realized it was. And I've been kind of down on the university thing for a while. I'm kind of in the Charlie Kirk camp. I think that colleges oftentimes charge people way too much money and teach them way too little. But you're taking it another step for us. You've recently written about the trades and trade schools in particular. What's your premise?
Well, we need to have more alternative education in the U.S. Not everybody should be pursuing a four-year college degree, and I think that's increasingly true today as we look towards the impact of AI and the need to have more hands-on skills. But it needs to start early. It needs to start in K-12, and students need to know that there are other options besides college. And so things like these career technical education programs need to be a part of the high schools, and we are seeing a positive trend there. But unfortunately, we're also hearing about shortages where the schools are not able to fill the classes that the students want because they don't have a teacher that's able to teach that.
So walk us through the impact of what that looks like in the marketplace and in the interim until we have the teachers supplied.
Yeah, so we have plenty of people that have the capabilities and the skills and experience to be teaching these classes. The problem is that this union-dominated pay scale system with the teachers' unions doesn't allow for that. And so what does the compensation scale look like? It's entirely based on your years of teaching experience and your level of education. Well, the people who have been in the trades for decades, who are the prime people we want to come into the high schools, oftentimes at the end of their careers where they want to step away from more physically demanding jobs and teach these skills that they've been engaged in for decades to the younger generation, that's a great opportunity. But if you have a pay scale that says you're going to start out as a first-year teacher and you have no higher education degree, then they're going to start out at a really low pay that's going to be sometimes half or less of what they were making actually in the field. And so we need to have opportunities for them to be paid a market-based wage. There's also things like the union pension scheme. These people might not be in 10 to 20 years long enough to vest in that. And so there's got to be other flexibility around it where the teachers can be compensated fairly for the skills they're bringing to the table.
Well, I'm going to guess that you have some ideas of how to solve all this, but I will say anything, just generally speaking from my viewpoint, anything that is kind of government initiated to kind of force schools into this mold is something that I'm going to be a little bit hesitant on. So how do you induce? How do you get them to say, okay, I want to pursue this?
Yeah, and it's the opposite of forcing. It's getting rid of the current barriers that are there. And so it's, the teachers union should not have a complete hold on this, and they've got to be willing to give and to say, hey, we recognize that our students will benefit from this education. You know, when you come out of the trade schools, people are making 2 times as much as their peers who were not in those trade schools. And so they need to recognize, yes, we need to get those teachers in here, and we're willing to give you an alternative compensation structure, and also to give a little bit on the credentialing. People who have been on the job for 20, 30 years do not need to go back and to get a master's or even a bachelor's degree in education. They could just pursue an alternative credentialing, or even have that waived and just have some monitoring to make sure that they're doing a good job in the classroom.
What is the benefit of exposing kids to the trades earlier in the educational experience? I mean, how has society morphed in such a way that we almost never talk about them, you know, in kind of formal educational circles anymore? And for a while there was a stigma, oh, he's a plumber, he's not a professor, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's enormous, and it would be transformative to start that younger. I know in my own high school, those who wanted to pursue the trades had to go to a different school that was kind of off-site, and it was thought like, oh, you couldn't keep up with the high school, and so this is like a lesser. And that's not the case at all. These are very valuable skills, and they're the most in-demand skills. And we just don't have enough people who know that this is an option and who are aware, hey, instead of paying potentially 6 figures for a college degree, I could get paid after high school to go and have an apprenticeship that's going to put me into this high-demand field and to have a great career going forward. And so it needs to start much younger, at least in 9th grade. And we have some examples. You know, West Alabama Works is one area where they are the mandatory experience of these 9th graders going to a career expo. And once they get up further along in high school, they can be partnered in attending both high school as well as going to an employer on the job site and learning things about, you know, car mechanics.
Yeah, I think that there's a lack in the culture that when we don't emphasize production and jobs that do things like produce. And I've got a lot of friends. I work in media, got a lot of friends in academia and other areas, but I've also got a lot of friends that own their own electrical shops, or, you know, they work for themselves in some way. And some of them are making much nicer livings than some of what we think are the kind of the white collar or the highbrow things. And at the end of the day, I don't think God wired us all to be a bookworm or a person that works with our hands. I think that there's a variety of people within creation that are designed to do different things with their life. And I just love the idea that we can offer this more often and really probably help people find meaning in their existence that they won't find kind of sitting in a 9-to-5 kind of cube job.
Absolutely. And if you can experience that as, you know, a 10th and 11th grader by being in that shop class and actually creating something with your hands and knowing, hey, there's another option after this. And we don't want the government to be forcing any of this. All they have to do is reduce the barriers, stop spending hundreds of billions of dollars in higher education subsidies that are going to degrees that have a negative return on investment.
Right.
And instead, how about you just reduce some of the regulations on apprenticeships? We're not sending money to apprenticeships. We are putting red tape on them that make it harder for them to expand. You know, the Biden administration undid the Trump administration's expansion of apprenticeships, and it canceled those ones, and then it imposed more than 100 pages of new regulations on them. So all we need to do is reduce the barriers.
Has Trump brought those back?
Not yet. We're hoping that possibly Congress could bring them back so that they wouldn't be flip-flopping between administrations. The problem was, you know, all these new industry-recognized apprenticeships cropped up, and they put significant investment into it, things like nursing programs where there's huge demand, and then they got shut down. So even if Trump were to revive them, there's going to be some hesitancy knowing that, hey, another administration might shut them down again. So hopefully Congress...
So give me the thumbnail. What's the landscape in Congress looking like these days on this issue?
There's a bill in both the House and the Senate that would revive these industry-recognized apprenticeship programs and codify them into law so that it doesn't have to be just this one option of going through the government's monopoly of registered apprenticeship programs, but an industry can get together and create these programs of their own accord. It'll be approved by the Department of Labor, but it will be the things that the industry knows is needed and really meeting those in-demand documents.
I love it. I love it. Rachel Grezler at the Heritage Foundation, keep fighting and doing all that you can for our young people. They need champions like you to do that.
Thanks, Kevin.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming back from New York. Don't go away. back with you from Times Square. Kevin McCullough. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything that you need. Joe Borelli, longtime New York City councilman. He was the majority whip and then the minority whip and then the minority leader before handing off the baton this last year to Frank Morano, who's been on this show. Why are you having city councilmen, guys, on the show? Well, partly because the city council in New York City actually means something. There's work to be done, and there are pockets of the city that actually have people that look like the rest of the country. It's not a complete wasteland of complete progressive propaganda. But Joe, I laid out a contrast at the beginning or at the end of the last segment, and I really think it's true. The rest of America, including a large portion of the tri-state area, is moving in the opposite direction of what New York City and what New York City under Zohran Mamdani would look like long term. And I'm curious as to how you think that positions the city for the future and what impact it has on the rest of the country.
Well, leave the city aside for a little while. I mean, this is a great day for Jack Ciattarelli in New Jersey. You know, his constituents or future constituents, many of them have family members. They're commuting every day to Manhattan to work, and they are fearful of the future of this city. They're fearful of new taxes that'll be brought on commuters. They're fearful of the public safety issues. They're fearful of congestion pricing, the gridlock, just the decay of the city that might happen under Zohran Mamdani.
Well, and to be honest, Jack's got to kind of love this, because if John Katzimatidis moves Gristedes to the other side of the river, you're going to have an influx of people leaving Manhattan that have a lot of money and have a lot of means.
Yeah, of course. And he'll be one of probably a couple of companies that would reconsider. I mean, when you look at the tax structure of New York for many years, and I will say, like, New York really had a golden era in the 2000s, early 2010s, and things were good. And people were willing to pay the premium and the high taxes and high cost because they were getting something in return. That calculation has changed, most notably during the pandemic and the post-pandemic era that we live in now. But you see Mamdani as the scary, gray face in all the ads. You see him as the boogeyman on the radio, and it's playing out not just in Jack Ciattarelli's race in New Jersey, but it's playing out in Nassau County. It's the largest county in the country, 1.5 million people, something like that. They're running against Zohran Mamdani there, both in the county, in the town of Hempstead, which is that is the largest town in America, 800,000 people. I mean, these downstream effects of Mamdani cannot be overstated. And the governor made such a miscalculation. And it was evident when you saw who didn't endorse Mamdani. The governor's race is going to be fought in the suburbs, right? That's primarily where the governor's race is won or lost. And you saw the two members of the House of Representatives, both Democrats, Tom Suozzi and Lauren Gillen, who both relatively recently won their seats. Lauren this last cycle, Tom 2 cycles ago, both targets by the RNC. They both definitively said, we ain't with Mamdani.
Yeah.
And if Kathy Hochul's going to face those same voters with the Mamdani baggage, she's going to have a hard time.
It's going to be interesting. All right. Final question, and shifting gears. With the passing of Charlie Kirk, he was, we were scheduling him to come and be part of a forum that we were going to have with some of the Salem talent. He declined before the assassination, but he was originally considering and very much enthusiastic about our efforts in that to raise awareness of what the mayor's race is going to look like. But just a couple of minutes here, your thoughts on Charlie's impact, even on young people in New York City. I was surprised, to be candid, with the number of urban young people that knew the name, and knew what this guy stood for, particularly in a progressive, heavily progressive area.
Look, I mean, people knew him as an opponent in many cases, but a respected one. And I think a lot of Democrats did have that opinion of him, where they might not have liked him or what he stood for, but they respected the fact that he was out there engaging on college campuses. I think that really is his legacy, because what you see from the Turning Point Club as an institution, the Turning Point gang, the sort of young conservatives out there that are more vocal and more visible than ever. When I first started on doing TV cable shows and stuff like that, I was the young guy, and I'm not the young guy anymore. There's almost a decade
Same.
into it. And it's great to see so many young people. I was on Newsmax yesterday with a woman who was 24 years old, a writer for Campus Reform, and it was just so great to hear her perspective. And in some ways, how she was doubling down on the conservative movement that, look, I just carried the football, another 10 yards during my time in public life. Charlie inspired that next generation. And I got to be honest, I was always a little jealous of him because he was so cool and so like with it. And he was able to make conservatism a popular thing on college campuses. Usually you have to have like a keg party and some Greek letters to be cool, right? Like Charlie Kirk, did it with conversations about God, family, and conservatism.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for all social media, everything else you need, the podcast, it's all there. And so glad to have you with us from Times Square. It is one of those kind of aftermath reflection points that people are starting to talk much more about in the last few days. The aftermath of the political violence of the ICE shooting in Dallas, the aftermath of the political violence of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the aftermath of the political violence of the trans kid who killed the school children in Minneapolis, the aftermath of the violence of the man on the light rail who stabbed a refugee for no apparent reason whatsoever. What is happening with political violence, and why aren't we using speech better to talk through our problems? That was the, in fact, vision of Charlie Kirk and why he had the Prove Me Wrong tour. Here to discuss is psychologist Dr. Chloe Carmichel. Chloe, I appreciate you being with us. Your thoughts as you've seen this debate and this kind of national discussion take very differing kind of turns since Charlie's death.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks so much for having me, and for Independent Women's Forum as well for connecting us. It's been an amazing issue for me to watch as a clinical psychologist, this normalization of the idea that words are violence. I think it's causing all kinds of problems. It's causing people to feel as if they're justified using violence as a form of self-defense against mere speech, that they don't like. And what's worse is that as a clinical psychologist, I know that repression, suppression, denial, those are actually also the things that lead to violence. When we have a person who has a problem with anger or violence, the first thing we want to do is teach them to use their words. So this lack of dialogue, this dialogue intolerance, I think is really dangerous.
It seems like the whole dynamic has been turned on its head, because it seems like particularly the Gen Z, which in recent surveys, 41% of them believe that political violence is suitable to use to get your point across. I mean, that, and the millennials, the Xers, the boomers before them, none of them think that way. But that group does, according to some of the new studies. But here's what I see to be the problem. We have people that are tolerant of violence, particularly on the political left, and intolerant of speech. And the opposite is what we need to see instituted society-wide.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So one problem, I think, begets the other. I think that it's working in a circular fashion. So the more, and as you said, it is, just statistically coming from the left also. In my book, Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and How to Use It Fearlessly, I explore what I call the 5 Ds, which are disinviting a speaker, defriending in social media, dropping a contact in real life, or distancing in real life, or declining to date. And people on the left, by self-report, are more likely to do each of the 5 Ds over political differences. They see it as a form of virtue, which I try to have compassion, because if you look at the news that people on the left are watching, they believe that people on the right are literal fascists, are literal Nazis. I wouldn't want to go to dinner with a Nazi, right? Even though we do know that when it comes to actual extremists, it's dialogue with them that actually will help sometimes to, talk them down. But nevertheless,
let me give a real life example.
Yeah.
So back when the marriage debate and before Obergefell was decided by the Supreme Court, there were a lot of people on both sides of the gay marriage issue. Mm-hmm. Had people that were staunch family values, and you had people that were very LGBTQ in their thinking, and it was as though there were two separate worlds that never could coexist. And I think one of the ways that when you are in a society like this, that is a pluralistic society, and that there isn't one always, absolute moral code. There's general morality, but there's not one moral code that everyone goes by. We're going to have to learn how to talk to each other and have to be with one another. And so where I think some people started, making headway was when pastors would sit down with gay kids and they would be able to have chats. Now, it doesn't mean that anything changed or that they changed their opinion. And this was Charlie Kirk's main thing. He was very much afraid that if you stop talking to each other, bad things are going to happen. And when two spouses stop talking to each other, divorce is on the horizon. And when countries do it, war is around the corner. I mean, the cessation of dialogue is really dangerous, but it is also a ploy, it seems to me, by those who have been in charge, who still, I think, want to be in charge, and they don't want free speech and they don't want debate.
Yeah, you're right. And again, I think that's why we keep hearing these words like fascist, authoritarian, Nazi. And of course, then we're literally seeing words like fascist literally put onto bullets, whether it has to do with Luigi Mangione shooting, a CEO in the middle of Times Square, or in the recent Dallas shooting. We're literally seeing people, merge the concept of words with violence, when actually it's the opposite. There's an incredible man. His name is Daryl Davis. He's a black blues singer who has personally collected the KKK hoods of over a dozen former Klansmen that he personally, as a black man, sat down and reasoned with. And I'm not saying we all have to sit down and dialogue on that level, but he's proof that through dialogue, we can accomplish incredible things. And by shutting down dialogue, we are literally setting the table for violence.
So if this is the understanding, and it seems to me that from your clinical perspective, it seems pretty obvious to you, is there an agenda? Is there a motive for one side or the other to prevent dialogue from continuing? Because it really does seem like dialogue would be the solution.
Well, that's an interesting point. Yeah, I mean, I can't say what are the motives exactly coming from the left, but we do know that when you look at, say, far leftist ideology, like which is in print, it's not disputed, the Communist Manifesto, for instance, they want to get rid of the nuclear family. They want people to really just take their orders directly from the government in all ways, in all matters.
Things that God-fearing people are never going to abide by. So we're stuck, in essence. We have work to do, and the only thing that I think that we can do to press forward is to continue to dialogue. Dr. Chloe Carmichel, we're out of time, but I would greatly covet you coming back and us doing even more on this in the future. Thank you for your work.
I'd love that. freespeechtoday.com. Thanks again.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
ABC's canceling Jimmy Kimmel Live because I said that Charlie Kirk shooter is a MAGA Republican. This is the worst assault on free speech regardless of what happened September 10th, 2025.
Jim, first of all, that's not true. Second, we're canceling his show because you alienated half your audience and it's no longer profitable.
I don't believe that. You sound as dumb as a MAGA Republican right now. I know you're trying to silence me. What is this, North Korea?
Jimmy, we have the right to fire you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I speaking to Kim Jong-un? I didn't realize I've been doing television in North Korea. I can't believe I'm the first person this has ever happened to. So you're being fired for groping women as a joke? No, Steven. I'm being fired because ABC is run by a bunch of North Koreans. You know, this kind of censorship is totally unprecedented. Steven, will you help me get back at ABC by making fun of them in your next monologue?
Of course, Jim. I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. Unfortunately, I can't write a joke if it's not about Donald Trump. But I think there's a comedy team who can help us. So ABC fired you for saying people who didn't get the COVID vaccine should die?
No, they fired me for speaking truth to power. So can you guys help us make fun of ABC?
Of course we can, Jimmy. Our writing process starts behind this wall of inspiration. All right, Matt, pitch me an idea. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. We make fun of ABC by calling the president Satan again. Oh, fudge, that's a great idea again.
Are you guys sure calling the president Satan again is the best way to make fun of ABC?
Trust us, Jimmy. Calling the president Satan again is peak comedy again.
2, 3, hey!
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as votes for Damas.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. And straight ahead, this hour, a big one for that Kevin show. Sketch comedy from the Babylon Bee and Al Berry. And an exclusive sit-down with the president's son, Eric Trump, who goes undersea. Along with more new music in the spotlight from Matthew West. And now from Times Square, where even the rats are wondering if they should run for mayor since the humans can't seem to get the job done, here's the Kevin!
Thank you, Mr. Pipes. Big hour for you, friends. Exclusive sit-down with Eric Trump coming up. And next week, just a little flash forward, the future governor of New Jersey, Jack Ciattarelli, will be with me exclusively. I'm looking forward to having a little chat about Jack, jackfornj.com, if you're a New Jersey interested party. Anyway, let's get to the news. Here we go. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. James Comey emerged this week denying charges and declaring, quote, "I am not afraid," which of course is what you start to scream when you're terrified. Usually when you're not afraid, you're just like eating pancakes at IHOP. You're not holding press conferences like you're Liam Neeson in Taken 4, Subpoenaed. Meanwhile, at the United Nations, delegates gave a standing ovation to the Palestinian leader, then 24 hours later walked out on Israel's prime minister, because nothing really argues for diplomacy like cheering the guy who wants you dead and ghosting the guy who actually has Wi-Fi and air conditioning. Actor Tim Allen revealed that Erica Kirk's moving memorial speech inspired him to forgive his father's killer, which is beautiful. But somewhere Buzz Lightyear is whispering to infinity and amnesty. Over in Beijing, China rejected Trump's nuclear talks and instead rolled out brand new weapons in a parade. Because when you don't want peace, the next logical step is floats with missiles. Think Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, only with more hypersonic warheads and fewer Snoopy balloons. Back in California, Governor Gavin Newsom accused GM, General Motors' Mary Barra, of selling America out with electric vehicle subsidies. This from the governor who sold California out a long time ago, one blackout at a time. Oklahoma Superintendent Ryan Walters is leaving his post after a brave campaign to wage war on teachers' unions. Apparently the teachers finally graded his work, and let's just say it wasn't on a curve. In New York, Kelly Loeffler is warning that socialist policies threaten the city's business core, which is ironic because the only business core still thriving in Manhattan at this point is the guy selling knockoff iPhone cases outside Penn Station. Cracker Barrel announcing this week it's closing 14 locations. Tragic news for anyone who enjoys chicken fried steak in a rocking chair purchased during the Eisenhower administration. Evidently, the rebrand didn't go so well. And speaking of tragedy, Donald Trump says U.S. World Cup host cities may need to change because they're too dangerous. That's right. America can apparently land on the moon, but can't host Ecuador versus Denmark in downtown Chicago without fearing for being shot. Nutritionists now say Americans are going nuts for nuts, calling them an ancient super snack. Of course, they didn't mention that half the population is already allergic. Nothing says health perks like snacks followed by an EpiPen chaser. And finally, Meghan Markle's sorority days are resurfacing, with experts claiming they hinted why she was always destined to clash with the royals. You mean the girl who majored in selfies and glitter shots might not gel with an institution that literally invented don't make eye contact? Stunning revelation. Next week, water will discovered to have been wet. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Calvin McCullough.
It's Clue Liberal Edition. This time there are no suspects. You only blame the murder weapon.
It was the candlestick. The candlestick is the killer.
Why won't anyone stop these murders with common sense candlestick control?
I'm gonna write legislation to ban them. I just need to get it past the NCA, the National Candlemen Association.
The Supreme Court just overturned the candlestick ban.
It's fun for the whole family, except for children or the elderly.
When can we end this candlestick culture that is killing us?
So I really like the Subaru. Very manly.
It is manly. My mom's drive one.
Well, but before I sign anything, I have to ask, what's the safety rating on that beast?
No worries. It's really important to ask good questions about big life decisions. This vehicle is top rated in safety.
Great. Final question. The fuzzy dice in the rearview mirror included?
I'll throw them in. Just for you, pal.
Deal.
Excuse me. I heard a variety of these Altoids have been recalled. Are these good to go? We got rid of all the bad ones last week, so they're good.
Well, sorry to bother you.
No bother at all, man. It's really, really important to be really aware of what you put into your body.
Hey, that's what I always say.
Me too.
Up top. Well, see you later.
Well, Tony, everything came back normal. You are as healthy as a healthy black man. Okay, now let's inject you with this vaccine and you'll...
Whoa. What's that?
Oh, it's just a normal vaccine. That's nothing to worry about. If you just roll up your sleeve, we'll just get this shot.
Whoa, wait. Can we talk about this? Look, I'm not some anti-science weirdo. I'd like to ask questions and know what's going into my body.
Ask questions?
Yeah.
You're not one of those crazy conspiracy theorists that I read about online, right?
Oh, no. Look, I ask questions about everything that pertains to my health and safety. Maybe I'll get the jab, but I'd just like to know what's in it. Has it been peer-reviewed?
Hello, this is Dr. Lewis. I need immediate backup in exam room 7. We've got a conspiracy theorist in here. He's armed with an open mind and he's very dangerous. Help! He's really fast!
Just asking questions, Tony! Time for your shot, Tony! I just wanted to do more research today, and when Trump was fast,
Wait. You're skeptical because of Trump's involvement?
I mean, well, no, Trump, no, MAGA.
What? I totally understand that. Why didn't you lead with it? Oh, you said false alarm. False alarm, everybody, false alarm. Look, I get it, okay? Let's just get you down to bill pay and get you on out of here. Look, I'm so sorry about all of that prison break, running down the hallway thing, but you know what? You can't be too careful. There's a lot of crazies out there. A lot of crazies.
Okay, so I just go that way and make a right?
Yeah, that's what you, yeah. Mm-hmm. Have a good day.
Thanks, Doc. Bye.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
All right, I'm joined now by the son of the president, Eric Trump, who has been on my show a few times before. I think, Eric, the last time you and I spoke was in an election cycle. But welcome back. It is a joy to have you. I often speak to your lovely bride. But today we are announcing the book Under Siege. And when I read the description of this, I immediately thought, this is the book I've been waiting to read. I've wanted to know what it was like inside the Trump family, inside the circle of trust, inside the people that were in the cars and the ambulance and all of the other, behind the scenes in the election and all that stuff. And you've meticulously put all of this from your perspective. Why did you feel it was time to write it?
Well, Kevin, thanks. I started writing it a couple years ago because I was pissed off, to tell you the truth. I mean, they did everything they could to destroy our family. The impeachments, the fake dossiers, the Russian hoax, as you know. They took my father off the ballot in Maine. They took him off the ballot in Colorado. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history. And I do not have a laptop from hell, unlike Hunter Biden. I have two beautiful kids and have done nothing wrong in my life. Haven't gotten so much as a speeding ticket. The subpoenas, the depositions, the weaponization of every AG in the country, the weaponization of every DA in the country, the raids of Mar-a-Lago, the taking us off of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, silencing our voice, the gag orders, the mug shots, and then the violence, right? And by the way, 100 other things. And then the violence, them trying to kill my father in Butler, and then them trying to kill him again in West Palm Beach, Florida, and then what they just did to Charlie Kirk, right? They tried to put my father, they tried to put our family, they tried to put all of us under siege. And I was the one that was directed at, in a certain way, most, meaning everything that wasn't in Washington, everything that wasn't politics. Guess what? They couldn't get to my father because he had executive protections under the Constitution. So guess where they directed the hatred? They directed it toward me as the guy who ran the Trump organization. I got every subpoena. They tried to bankrupt our company. They tried to divide our family. They went after our employees. And I wrote this very, very raw book. And then all of a sudden Butler happened. And the term under siege had even more weight. They wanted to do anything they could to just silence the voice, whether it's bankrupt us or lock him behind bars or kill him or destroy us or separate us. And that's the only way. It was a siege. It was a coordinated siege that went to the very top, of the White House, coordinated by Obama, coordinated by Joe Biden, coordinated by the crooks in the White House. And I tell all the parts that you weren't seeing on TV every single night. And it's a hell of a story. And it's very, very raw, and it's very un-PC. And I'm incredibly proud of it.
Well, I feel all of that just in the answer to your first question. So if this is just a tiny little glimpse of what the book is going to be like, I cannot wait to put my hands on it, because what we were stuck with, Eric, on the other side, and you've been on my show for a long time. We're trying to tell the facts. You guys are being dealt a series of incidents and circumstances and so forth that mostly are not any of your own doing, and many of them far, far, far too unjust for any other family to endure. And yet, because you are the Trumps and you had a certain degree of ability, I kept asking myself the question the whole time that I was watching your dad go to that stupid, stinky courthouse in Lower Manhattan every day last summer. I was saying, what would it be like if it wasn't like one of the most powerful men in the world? If it was like a normal family, like if it was me, what defense would I even be able to muster for it? You guys, in many ways, like your dad said when he was campaigning in all three cycles,
They're coming after him because he's standing between them and the rest of us. And if it weren't for you guys, America we wouldn't have what is going on right now. And I feel like in so many ways, it's a revival of American excellence. It's a revival of American prosperity. But it was because of the sacrifice that you as a family made to put your life on the line.
I wouldn't leave my father's side in that courtroom. I went with him every single day. I sat in those in that cold courtroom every single day directly behind him. I would not leave his side. And you know what? They gagged my father, but you know who they couldn't gag? Me, because I wasn't part of that lawsuit. So guess who marched down the courthouse steps virtually every single day?
Yep.
And gave them hell because they literally gagged him so he couldn't talk about the judge's daughter and the fact that she worked for the Democratic machine and the guy wouldn't recuse himself. The whole thing was corrupt. The whole thing was totally corrupt. I mean, and that's why all the cases have been overturned.
Right.
You know, Letitia James's $560 million verdict on our company got overturned 5-0 by the appellate court. They tried to put us out of business. They wanted the name off of every tower, and I shouldered every aspect of that. You know, but there were also so many other things that I was pissed off about. I mean, you know, they got into the cell phones of every single January 6th, grandmother who walked by, into the Capitol and took a selfie. But yet they let some guy at 130 yards, and I'm a competitive shooter, right? This is a chip shot with a rifle. This is I know that world better than just about anybody. Let a guy at 130 yards on a roof on Butler, Pennsylvania that, happens to come about a half an inch away from taking my father's head off. And we still don't know a damn thing about this guy. Like, that pisses me off. It pisses America off. It pisses the sun off. I'm sick and tired of the games and, the media in this country, everything that they did to try and distract, everything they did to try and silence, the false narrative, the 98% negative media coverage, despite the fact that you had one of the greatest presidents in history. What happened in 2020? The fact that the numbers, I'm sorry, they just don't add up. I'm a mathematical guy. I'm a finance guy, and none of them make any sense whatsoever for a guy who's incoherent and never left his basement. And I would do counter rallies to him where I would have 1,000 people, and across the street, meaning as a guy who's not the candidate, I just happen to be the son of the candidate, and then across the street, you had the little yellow social distancing circles, and none of them were filled, and yet the guy happens to get, 16 million more votes than Barack Obama in 2012? Give me a freaking break. No one believes it, and I go into this in great detail, and I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm just a son that's pissed off because the real story wasn't told, because they tried to shatter us. And you know what, Kevin? They couldn't break us. They couldn't break our family. They couldn't break our movement. They tried everything they possibly could, including ending his life. They succeeded with Charlie when they started voting from the rooftops. But they cemented the greatest political movement in history. And I think somebody who's going to go down as maybe the greatest president that this country has ever seen. And I hope the one thing that comes out of it was the fact that we rewrote the rules and we created a movement as a family, and we fought together as a family, and we did so for the purpose of saving America.
Well, I want to talk to you about the Charlie Kirk death, and obviously coming so close on the heels of the multiple attacks on your father, because, and I've been very vocal about this, but there is no whataboutism in this case. There is no two sides. These arguments, as Greg Gutfeld said, are dead to normal Americans because they see it for themselves. All of the violence comes from one way headed towards the other. But when we lost Charlie, we didn't lose someone who was just a bystander in the movement. This was the guy that was actually using the methodology that he believed in, which was open discourse with people that disagreed with him, friendly, winsomely, as cheerfully as he could. One time he sat down with all strippers and OnlyFans models and told them about the values and virtues of family. There was no person that he was too good to talk to, and there was no question too hard for him to address. And yet the very person that was modeling what we should have all been modeling, which is this winsome discourse when we have disagreement, was sniped by a bullet. And Eric, we have gotten to a point now where they tried it twice on your dad. Thank God that God put his hand on him and protected him. But they were successful with Charlie.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. McCullough.
The name of the book is Under Siege, and friends, I want to put this graphic from X up on the screen. I said from the moment I heard about it, this is the book that every American needs to read. This is the inside scoop on the story that nobody was telling through the media. Eric Trump is the author. Eric, you've pledged an amount of the proceeds from this book to Turning Point. You obviously believed in Charlie's mission. You believe in your father's mission, and you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're turning the bad that has happened into you into a story that tells the truth. People can finally know the truth, but you're also now doing something positive with the proceeds, and they're going to actually help change the world. But I'm just curious, where do you see the Turning Point movement going? Erica's now elevated, of course. I think she'll do a great job. But what do you think is going to happen with this restless Gen Z that we have in this country?
It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. People are waking up in masses, and they cannot stop it, and they know they can't stop it. They wanted all of us to not stand on that stage, Kevin. They don't want you on that stage. They don't want me on that stage. They don't want my father on that stage. They don't want Don on that stage. They certainly don't want Laura on that stage. They didn't want Charlie Kirk on that stage, clearly, right? And they cannot stop it. Guess what? It only emboldens all of us, right? And that's why I'm donating a portion of, obviously, the proceeds from this book. Erica is about as strong as any woman I've ever seen. That speech that she gave about Charlie that night, live, by the way, this wasn't something that was
I don't know how she did that
4 times, And by the way, you want to see something that's just motivated an entire generation of people. I've had employees literally text me, my daughter's been in tears for 3 days over the death of Charlie. She's 17, Eric. She's going to start voting in 6 months or a year. And guess who she's going to be voting for? You think she's going to vote for the radical left? They made the biggest decision, and we're going to continue to have the loudest voice, and we're going to continue to win because we believe in God, we believe in country, we believe in American flag, we believe in Constitution. We believe that we're the greatest superpower in the world. We believe in peace and safety. We are against anarchy. We are against these, scumbags who dress up in all black and stand on the roof with sniper rifles as everybody's celebrating, waving American flags and celebrating the greatest country in the world and our individual freedoms. We will never allow them to silence us, despite how they certainly have put us under siege.
One last question, and thank you for being so generous with your time. Under Siege tells a lot of stories. Your anger is obvious, even as you're retelling them now. I can tell it's still raw and still fresh. Are there any other snippets in this book, behind the scenes things, even from the Apprentice days or elsewhere, that we may not have seen a certain side of Eric or of Donald or of the family in some way that people will still, even laugh or even have something? Because I don't know if all the pages can be totally 100%, all the bad stuff all the time. And it seemed as though in some of the promo materials that there is some behind the scenes stuff from even earlier in life.
It's my entire life. It's everything that's behind the scenes, down to, my father got, arraigned in Miami, the fake Jack Smith case so well, the hoax boxes case. It was his birthday, and I'll never forget, we got on the plane with my little daughter, Carolina. She was 5 years old, and she looks at him. He'd just come back from the courthouse, right? And he comes up the plane, and Grandpa, happy birthday. Are we going to the trampoline park for your birthday? And so here's a guy that just came out of a courthouse, right? And you have this little 5-year-old, and you see the worst of just society, right? With them trying to imprison somebody because they don't like his political opinions, kind of married up with the next generation of Americans who are so naive to kind of the world. And I get very granular behind kind of the scenes in my family. I think the vast majority of this book people would never have seen, would not know. It's unvarnished honesty. I did not hold back. I wrote every word myself. This isn't like a ghostwriter out there playing around. I'm pissed off. This voyage started 3 years ago when they were just trying to destroy us as a family, forget about kill us. Then it went to kill us. Then it went to kill other people in the movement. And then this came out 2 days before what happened to Charlie. The timing is frankly eerie, but it went to #1 on Amazon instantly. It went to #1 in biographies, in memoirs, in government, nationally. It's topping all the charts right now. And I can tell you, probably the New York Times is going to do everything they can to keep me off of that list because
I don't have any doubt about that.
We were target #1 of theirs, but The book is doing incredible. I'm proud of it, and I will continue to be the loudest voice in honor of Charlie and in honor of the movement, in honor of a father that I love dearly.
I think that's wonderful. And friends, it hits the streets on the 14th of October, but pre-order is off the hook right now. Get on Amazon. Get wherever you buy your books. Go and buy several copies of it. Eric, I appreciate all that you do for our country. I appreciate all that you have endured and all of the rhetorical bullets that you've taken from the elections to the courtrooms and all the rest. Our prayers have been with you. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thanks for coming and talking to us, and best wishes on Under Siege.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin McCullough coming back from Times Square. Don't go away.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. Friends, I am very, very pleased to tell you that in the course of this year, where we have asked you to help us with our slave liberation project, and this is, I think, the 8th year we've done it, we've seen over the course of those 8 years, by the way, just on this show, more than 5,000 human beings be liberated from human slavery, and that touches me greatly. But I want to tell you that this year we have hit a little bit of a challenge. We have a goal of 208 slaves that we know the names of, and we have a list for that we can liberate this year. But we have only liberated 72 thus far, which means that we still have, 136 that are still in captivity and will not be scheduled to be liberated until we speak for them. And this is of great concern to me because we have September, October, November, December. Now, we could do that fairly simply if everyone that has the potential to liberate a slave steps up and says, I will do that. I will be part of that solution. We could do that pretty quickly. We could probably finish it off in just a week or two if everybody said, hey, let's get on board. But I am very, very worried that we are going to get to the end of the year, and instead of giving someone a Christmas liberation that will set them free for the rest of their life, we tell someone that they have to wait for another liberation opportunity to come along. So I am very concerned, and I'm leaning into you a little bit because I want to make sure that if we have the opportunity to do so, that we do it immediately, that we don't wait for some other time. I don't know when these precious, precious women will have another chance. And I want to make sure that if we know their name and we know their story and we have negotiated for them to be released now, that we do everything that we can in order to do that. Okay, so here's how it works. A lot of you have written and said, Kevin, we're just hearing about it for the first time this year. How does it work? These slaves were taken into captivity during the Sudan Civil War, and what is now Northern Sudan or Sudan proper, were holding Christian women from the South, that is now its own country, South Sudan. They were holding women from that area as slaves, captives, sex slaves, chattel slaves, work slaves, you name it. These women have been put through it. They have been sexually abused. They are regularly verbally abused. They are physically abused. They are beaten. They are raped. They are tortured. And if they resist at all, it just gets worse. That's what they have lived with for the last 15 to 20 years individually. And some of them taken as young girls, the abuse started very young, because many of them are just still in their late 20s, early 30s when we are able to get them liberated. And that means they have still a very full life to live. My friends at Christian Solidarity International, who were kind of crucial in getting the peace accord drawn up between the North and the South in Sudan, and used the American administration and other governments to help put pressure on the two sides, was not able to convince the international community to do anything about the slavery. So we have Christian Solidarity International, and people like you and I have been diligently trying to get the 185,000 slaves
out of northern Sudan back to southern Sudan where they came from. And to date, we've liberated over 100,000 slaves, which is amazing. The problem is that we have about 35 to 40,000 slaves left, and that does include the children of some of the slaves who were impregnated by their slave masters in slavery. But this is how simple it is, and this is how it works, and it's a very, very simple process. $250 one time. $250 one time liberates a slave for life. It gives them their freedom, and not only that, the main thing it gives them, because we negotiate the freedom, the main thing that it gives them is everything they need to start their life over. So in the what's called the bag of hope that is given to every liberated slave, you have bags of grain for food that they can make for the coming year, a full year's worth of sorghum grain. Then there's a bag of seed that they can plant to grow more sorghum. So you've got food for now, you've got food for the future. They are also given some clothing items, some blankets, some tarps, some things that help protect them from the weather, some things that will help them survive in the kind of unique weather that South Sudan has. There are utensils for gardening, fishing, cleaning, all of those types of things that they may need. There are some utensils for them that cover all of those things. And then kind of the cherry on top of the sundae is they're given a little she-goat. A little she-goat that can be used to have other baby goats and thus give them some micro-enterprise for their life. That and growing the grain and producing the milk and the cheese. They can also have a lot of food products that they're going to be able to use. Some of them will be able to liberate their children with them, and so this will be automatic nourishment for their kids, the goat milk in particular. These are all things that are going to come about from your $250 gift. Your one-time $250 gift supplies the goat and all of those supplies, plus a Bible, plus some other things as needed. Some of the women need medical care because of how the abuse has been impacted upon them. They receive that at no additional charge. Counseling, the ability to talk to people from CSI, the ability to write their story down and remember their name. They also help them find the original place of origin where they came from in South Sudan. And if they have family, if they have friends who remember them, they try to relocate them there. But if they can't find someone, then there are now these communities of former slaves that have sort of banded together to form sisterhoods that they can go and live with in freedom. No more slavery, no more beatings, no more labor that is forced upon them. They get to have a life. And most importantly, they get to begin to worship God the way they wish as Christians instead of taking on the false Islamic identities that their slave masters forced them to do. One of the ways that they are abused is female genital circumcision, which is visited upon them. The slave master says, if you're going to be a good woman in this culture, you have to circumcise yourself. Many of the women bleed out. Some of them have died from the procedures. Many times it's very unsanitary in how they are forced to do it, and they're forced to do it to themselves. It is heinous what they have gone through. And yet, friends, we can change all of that for them. 1-888-342-1010. 888-342-1010. Or go to this website, bringherhome.org. Bringherhome.org or 888-342-1010. But please go and liberate a slave right now. We need your help.